Let me tell you about two people who started with the exact same paycheck. David prided himself on being the cheapest guy in the room. He bragged about driving 40 minutes out of his way to save 11 cents a gallon on gas. He bought the lowest priced everything, the thinnest paper towels, the shoes that fell apart in 4 months, the mattress that gave him a bad back. He skipped his gym membership to save $30 a month, then spent that same $30 on fast food because cooking felt like too much effort after a long day. He never invested a single dollar because in his mind, money sitting in a savings account was safe and money in the stock market was risky. David thought he was winning at money. He thought cheap was the same thing as smart. Then there's Sarah. Sarah spent $80 on a pair of boots instead of $20. She paid for a financial course instead of pirating a sketchy PDF. She put money into a simple index fund every single month, even when it felt uncomfortable. She wasn't reckless. She still budgeted. She still looked for deals. But she asked a different question than David did. David asked, "What's the cheapest option?" Sarah asked, "What's actually going to cost me the least over time?" 10 years later, David is still broke, still buying the cheapest version of everything, and somehow still struggling every single month. Sarah is not. And here's the part that surprises almost everyone the first time they hear it. David wasn't bad with money because he didn't save enough. He was bad with money because he was cheap. Being cheap and being good with money are not the same thing. In fact, they're often opposites.
Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to look at every purchase you make completely differently. Hey, welcome back to Zaki Invests. I'm Zaki, and this is the channel where we take confusing money topics and turn them into stories that actually make sense. Every week here, we dig into the psychology behind how people earn, save, spend, and invest. Because the truth is, most money problems were never really about math. They're about mindset. So if you've ever wondered why two people with the same paycheck can end up in completely different financial places, or why smart people still make dumb money decisions, you're exactly in the right place. Here's the belief almost all of us grow up with. If you want to be good with money, just spend less, cut corners, find the lowest price, never pay extra for anything. It sounds logical. It even sounds responsible. We praise people who brag about their grocery store coupons or their thrift store wardrobe, and we quietly judge people who spend a bit more on quality. Cheap gets mistaken for disciplined. Cheap gets mistaken for wise. But here's the problem with that belief. It only looks at the price tag. It completely ignores everything else that actually determines whether you end up rich or broke. Things like how long something lasts, what it costs you in time, what it costs you in missed opportunities, and what it does to your brain every single time you make a decision purely out of fear of spending. Cheap people are obsessed with the number on the price tag. People who are actually good with money are obsessed with something completely different: value over time. Let's break that down, because this is where it gets interesting. Imagine you need a pair of work boots. The cheap pair costs $20 and falls apart in 6 months. So you buy another cheap pair, and another. Over 2 years, you've bought 4 pairs of boots, spending $80 total, and your feet have been uncomfortable the entire time. Meanwhile, the better pair cost $80 up front, but lasted the full 2 years without a single problem. Same amount of money spent, but one person walked around in pain the whole time, replaced their boots 4 separate times, and wasted hours shopping for replacements. The other person bought once and moved on with their life. The cheap option wasn't actually cheaper, it just felt cheaper in the moment, because the pain of spending $80 all at once is psychologically louder than the pain of spending $20 4 different times, even though the second one costs you more in stress, time, and discomfort. This is the trap. Our brains are wired to react to the size of a single transaction, not the total cost over time. A small price feels safe right now. A larger price feels scary right now. So cheap people consistently choose the option that feels safest in this exact moment, while quietly paying more across their entire life. It's not stupidity. It's not laziness. It's a very specific, very human bias. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it.
You see this exact pattern everywhere once you start looking for it. Think about car maintenance. The cheap option is to skip the oil change because it costs $60 you'd rather keep. 6 months later, the engine starts making a strange noise, and now you're staring at a repair bill in the thousands. The cheap choice in the short term quietly became the most expensive choice possible, simply because it was pushed down the road instead of dealt with directly. Or think about insurance. Cutting corners on coverage saves a small amount every month, right up until the one moment you actually need it, and suddenly that small monthly saving turns into a financial disaster you can't undo. None of these people set out to make bad decisions. They just kept choosing whatever felt cheapest in the moment, without ever asking what that choice was quietly costing them down the line. Now here's where the psychology gets even deeper, and this is the part that explains why so many cheap people stay stuck financially, no matter how hard they try. Researchers who study poverty and financial stress discovered something fascinating about what happens inside the brain when someone is constantly focused on not having enough. When you're hyper-fixated on saving every single dollar, your mind enters a kind of tunnel vision. All of your mental energy gets pulled toward the immediate question of how do I avoid spending right now? And there's almost nothing left over for bigger picture thinking. You stop noticing opportunities. You stop asking, could I earn more instead of just spending less? You stop considering, what if I invested this instead of hoarding it? Your brain becomes so busy guarding the small amount of money in front of you that it loses the ability to see the larger financial picture.
This is exactly why so many cheap people never invest. Investing requires letting go of money today in exchange for more money later. But if your brain is wired to treat every dollar leaving your hand as a small emergency, investing feels unbearable, even when you logically know it's the smart move. So instead, the money sits in a savings account, earning almost nothing, slowly losing value to inflation every year, while someone else's money, invested instead of hoarded, quietly doubles, then doubles again. The cheap person feels like they're protecting their money. In reality, they're starving it. There's another layer to this, too. Cheap people often refuse to spend on the things that would actually grow their income. A course that teaches a valuable skill, a tool that saves them 10 hours a month, a network event that could lead to a better job, a slightly nicer outfit for an interview that could change their entire career trajectory. To a cheap mindset, all of these feel like unnecessary expenses. But to someone who understands value over time, these are investments in a future version of themselves who earns significantly more. One person spends $50 now to potentially earn thousands later. The other person saves that $50 and earns the exact same income year after year, decade after decade, wondering why nothing ever changes. There's also a cost to being cheap that almost nobody talks about, and it has nothing to do with the price of anything. It's the cost to your relationships and your reputation. Think about the friend who always forgets their wallet at dinner, or the coworker who never chips in for the office gift, or the family member who argues over splitting a bill down to the last cent. Over time, people remember that. They stop inviting that person to things. They quietly stop recommending them for opportunities. They stop trusting them with bigger responsibilities, because being cheap in small moments signals something about how a person handles everything else. Meanwhile, the people who are generous and fair, even in small ways, tend to get more chances, more referrals, more goodwill. And goodwill, it turns out, is one of the most underrated financial assets a person can have. You can't put it on a balance sheet, but it shapes who gets the next promotion, the next client, the next opportunity. So here's the surprising truth hiding underneath all of this. Being cheap doesn't come from being smart with money. It comes from fear. Fear of running out, fear of being judged, fear of making the wrong choice. And fear is a terrible financial advisor because fear only ever looks at the next 5 minutes. It never looks at the next 5 years. If this is making you rethink some of your own money habits, that's exactly the point. Drop a comment and tell me, are you more like David or more like Sarah? And if you're new here, hit subscribe because we break down a new money psychology topic just like this one every single week. This doesn't mean spending freely is the answer either. That's a different trap entirely. The goal isn't to become careless with money. The goal is to stop confusing cheapness with wisdom. Being frugal and being cheap might look similar on the surface, but they come from completely different places. A frugal person asks, is this worth it? A cheap person only asks, is this the lowest price? A frugal person will happily pay more for something that saves them time, lasts longer, or grows their future income. A cheap person will choose the lowest number every single time, even when it quietly costs them more in the long run.
So what should you actually do with this? Start asking a different question before every purchase. Instead of what's the cheapest option, ask what's going to cost me the least over the full lifetime of this decision. Sometimes that answer is still the cheaper option. There's nothing wrong with finding genuine deals or cutting things you don't actually need. But sometimes the answer is the slightly more expensive choice because it saves you money, time, and stress down the road. The skill isn't spending less. The skill is spending wisely. Try this the next time you're about to buy something. Picture the purchase 1 year from now, not just today. Will the cheap version still be working, or will you be buying it again? Will skipping it now create a bigger cost later, like the engine repair or the missed opportunity? And on the flip side, would spending a little more actually buy you back time, peace of mind, or future income? That one shift in thinking from lowest price to lowest lifetime cost is the exact mental move that separates people who stay stuck from people who build real wealth. It also helps to separate your spending into 2 simple categories: things that lose value the moment you buy them, and things that either save you money over time or help you make more of it. A cheaper version of the first category is usually fine. Generic brand groceries, a basic phone case, a no-frills gym membership all work just as well as the expensive version. But in the second category, your skills, your health, your tools for work, your investments, cutting corners almost always costs you more in the end. Knowing which category something falls into before you reach for the cheapest option is one of the simplest habits that separates frugal people from cheap people. And when it comes to your money specifically, notice where fear might be quietly running the show. If the idea of investing makes your stomach turn, even a small, boring, simple amount each month, ask yourself honestly, is that caution or is that the scarcity tunnel vision talking? Because the people who build real wealth aren't the ones who saved the most pennies. They're the ones who learned to let some of those dollars go to work for them instead of locking them away out of fear. Here's the thing nobody tells you growing up. Being good with money was never about spending as little as possible. It was never about bragging over saving a few cents here and there, while missing the bigger picture entirely. Real financial wisdom is quieter than that. It's the discipline to look past the price tag and ask what something actually costs you over time, in money, in stress, in missed opportunities, in the years that pass while your savings sit still instead of growing.
David thought being cheap made him responsible. In reality, it kept him stuck in the exact same financial spot for over a decade because he was so focused on protecting today's dollar that he never gave tomorrow's dollar a chance to grow. Sarah understood something simple but powerful, that money isn't meant to be hoarded out of fear. It's meant to be directed with intention, spent where it builds something, saved where it makes sense, invested where it can grow. Notice that the difference between David and Sarah was never about how much they earned. It was about the question each of them asked before every single financial decision, repeated thousands of times over a decade. One small shift in thinking, applied consistently, ends up separating two completely different financial futures, not because one person got lucky and not because one person started with more, but because one person kept feeding their fear and the other kept feeding their future. So the next time you're proud of finding the cheapest version of something, pause for just a second and ask yourself the real question. Are you actually being smart with your money, or are you just being afraid of it? If this video gave you a new way to think about your money, do me a favor. Hit like, it genuinely helps this channel grow, and subscribe if you want more videos on money psychology and wealth building every week. And let me know in the comments, what's one cheap habit you're going to rethink after watching this? I read every comment. See you in the next one.